Today I am going to be making some delicious sourdough bread along with a yummy apple preserve recipe for some fall homemaking. I'm Rebekah with Learning Together by Grace, Homemaking God's Way. Y'all, let's go. So you guys, I decided to have my husband pull out my fall Thanksgiving bin so that I could start decorating for the season. And my sweet daughter Grace, she decided to surprise me by putting up some stuff the night before. I decided to hang that towel over my stand mixer. She added these cute little pumpkins and this wooden sign. I put those mugs there. I love those mugs. I've had them for several years now. And of course, apples and oranges scream fall. And then I forgot about this cute little cookie jar that I had as well. I pulled out some of my towels, or my daughter put that over the oven. And here's another sign. You guys, in this corner, I have a Lazy Susan that I got for $5 at the Dollar Tree. It is so perfect to hold my different oils and vinegars and things of that nature. And here is a letter L sign on my refrigerator. It's hung up there by a tip clip, you guys. I'll probably add a white regular 3M clip up there so that it looks a little better. And then we have this little farm fresh sign that my daughter hung up next to our window. And then I just added this cute little sign over our double doors that go into our den. So fall is my favorite season of the year. I absolutely love the changes and the newness that come along with it. I get to make lovely breads, and as you can see here, I am pulling out a delicious sourdough bread. I made this with pumpkin spice, and oh my goodness, the aromas that were coming from that oven were so awesome. And so I am just putting my Dutch oven back in, and I'm just going to remove this from the parchment paper and put it on this cooling rack so that it can cool. It was hot, y'all. But yes, it was so phenomenal. Like the smells, it was like fall is in the air, and you can smell it because of this bread. Now, to continue on, I am making a regular sourdough artisan loaf. And as I make this artisan dough and score it and put it in the oven, I just want to talk to you a little bit about fall homemaking. So I am trying to be more intentional about my homemaking and the things that I'm doing around my house, especially while the seasons are changing. I am trying to take stock in what's going on around me, what I'm feeling like, what I'm thinking, and all of those things. I have a personal belief that as the seasons are changing, God is preparing us for something new. And so for me, when I think about fall homemaking and what it means and why I love it so much, this is what comes to mind for this season of my life. Family gatherings. Shorter days that make you want to get cozy and spend more personal time together. The beautiful artwork that God puts on display outside. I know that I'm not the only one that loves to see the oranges, the auburns, the beautiful browns, and even some greens still, and the yellows mixed in together to make this beautiful artwork that we can enjoy for a season. I love this. This is also a time for me to reflect over my life, to see what's working for me and what's not working for me. This is an opportunity for me to prune those dead things that are no longer serving me purpose. One thing that I think about is my peach tree that I have yet to prune. But this is definitely the season for me to cut off all of those dead branches, so that it can go into a nice dormant state and it can begin to heal and it can rejuvenate from all of the hard work that it did during the summertime. And so I am looking to prune those dead things. This is also a time of preparation. Usually around this time of year, I am preparing. And I don't always know what I'm preparing for, but there is something about the month of September. And of course, if you are a believer in Christ, you know that this is the Hebraic year, beginning of the year. And with that being said, a lot of newness happens in the beginning of the year. And so I am doing a lot of prepping for what's to come. I'm just trying to be more intentional with my relationship with God and teaching my children more about God as well. And most of all in this season, rest. You guys, I have the opportunity to rest. I get the opportunity to even craft my gifts, like with bread making. How wonderful is this loaf coming out of the oven? And again, you guys, the smells are beautiful. So with all of that being said, I know some of you are wondering, or maybe wondering, how does all of this relate to homemaking? Well, I think of it this way. If I am the keeper of my home, then I must go through these processes in order to keep my home healthy, thriving, as well as inviting, not just to the people outside, but really for my family. I want my husband to be able to come home from work after working long hours and feel like he is welcome here. I want him to walk through the doors and know that he has a place of refuge. And I take very seriously that task, because if I'm home all day long and my job isn't on the outside of my home, then what am I doing to keep things in order and keep things at rest and at peace here at my house? So that is one of the things that you can take stock in when it comes to those points that I made about what fall means to me. So while I'm making our breakfast this morning, I want to ask you, what does fall homemaking look like for you? Do you find yourself slowing down and taking more time to focus on your family? Are you reflecting on life and the things you need to change, let go of, or even add to it that will make it better? Is God calling you to rest this fall so that you can rejuvenate and prepare yourself for your upcoming season? If so, let me know what that looks like for you. I know it's going to be different for everyone. So moving back to breakfast, I am making this bacon, and I just want to give you a little secret when making bacon. Whenever you are making it, flip it often, because the more you flip it, the more evenly it will cook. If you just keep it to cook on one side, it's gonna burn. So just keep flipping it like I'm doing it here, and make sure that those parts that are curling up, just kind of give them a little press down so that they can get cooked evenly as well. And another little secret is, after you take your bacon off the heat, it's going to continue cooking and it will crisp up. So bear that in mind. All right, you guys, so back to that question. I want you to leave me a comment below and let me know, what does this look like for you? And again, reflecting on what fall homemaking is for you and what God is wanting for you in this season of your life. I know I do a lot of that, like I said, during this time of year, because man, the year has gotten by us by September, and a lot has happened, and it's time for a little pause, or not necessarily fully stopping, but pausing for a moment and considering things. Now for me, what I can say, again, with the seasons changing, I begin to see things around my home that no longer serve me. Sometimes I don't want to part with those things because they're comfortable and they seem very practical. Take, for instance, this green tray. I used it for spring and summer, and I really enjoyed it. And I was kind of reluctant to let it go because I felt like it just added something functional to my day-to-day life. But then I realized that it doesn't go with my decor. So if it doesn't go with my decor, then I need to let it go and bring in something better, in which I did. I was able to find something else in my home and use it for the same purpose, and I think it looked better. So I want you to think about this as well. What are some things you are holding on to in this season as a homemaker that no longer fit your life? Is God calling you to let it go and to replace it with something even more useful for you in your current season or upcoming season? All right, you guys, to add to our breakfast, I cut up these oranges and some apples, and now I am cutting up this pumpkin spice sourdough bread. So what I did to make the pumpkin spice, I actually used pumpkin puree. So I actually spread out the dough and I put pumpkin puree with all of the pumpkin seasonings into the pumpkin puree and mixed it together, and I spread it on the dough and I added some honey, and then I rolled it all up, and that's why I had those beautiful cinnamon swirls. So here is me plating up our breakfast plate. And you guys, this bread was so good. It was pretty much gone in one day. It was gone. All right, now you guys, I am moving on to this delicious apple preserve recipe. I will make sure to share the link of the recipe from my blog in the description below. This way you can make this yummy goodness for you and your family. And so just to give you a rundown, I am cooking this in my crock pot. That way all I'm doing is peeling and coring everything, dicing up those apples and putting them in my crock pot. And yes, I'm saving those apple peels and my cores because you can make a lot of good things with that. You can put it in breads, cakes, you can even make a jelly. So I am adding in some sugar. I had 2.5 pounds of apples. So I'm adding in 1.5 cups of sugar. You need 1 cup of sugar per 2 pounds of apples. At least that's the ratio that I like to use. I also added in 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. I added in 1/4 teaspoon of salt, but somehow I managed to lose that footage. But nonetheless, I mixed all of that together, and then I'm going in with some apple cider vinegar. I only add 2 teaspoons. I know some other recipes may call for more, but I just don't like too much apple cider vinegar in my preserves because it makes it too tangy for me, and I don't like that flavor. But the acid from the vinegar does help cut some of that sweetness. And so now I am putting that on low, and I'm going to allow it to cook overnight. Mine ended up cooking for 12 hours, and then I just placed it on warm until I was ready to use it. So here I'm taking my mason jars. These are 1/2 pint size mason jars, and cleaning them very well with hot soapy water. And then after that, I'm just going in and rinsing them. I'm actually rinsing them twice to make sure that I remove all of the soap from the jars and from the lids and everything. And so now I'm taking my lids as well as my rings, and I'm adding them to water. And I'm also doing the same thing with my mason jars, and I'm adding them to water, and they are going to simmer until I am ready to use them. All right, so now that my lids and rings have simmered, I'm removing the rings, and I'm making sure that I dry these off well. The rings are what will keep the lid in place. So now that I'm ready to get working on these apple preserves, I'm just using my masher. You can also use a mixer if you like to, or even your blender if your blender can handle hot food. And I'm just going in and mashing all of this in so that I can get a nice thick consistency. And you know, if you're using a handheld masher, this might take some time, but that's all right. You can get it to whatever consistency that you prefer. I didn't want too many thick chunks in there, and so I stopped right here. Alrighty, so next up, I'm just removing those cans from the hot water that has been on my stove simmering. And you need to use something to remove that out of this hot water, or else you will burn yourself. So don't try to just put your hand in there and take them out, because it gets really hot. So we're going to work as quickly as we can. As you can see, the steam is coming from those canning jars. Alrighty, now it is time to fill up my jars. They're still warm, and I have my warm apple preserves, and I'm using this funnel. It's especially made for canning so that it fits in the wide mouth jars, and so, or just any of the canning jars really. And so I'm adding 2 ladlefuls of apple preserves to my canning jars so that I don't overfill it. That's another thing you want to be wary of, is not overfilling your jars. You do want to make sure that you are leaving at least a 1-inch head space for your canning jars, okay? So only fill your preserves or whatever it is that you are canning up to the point to where you have 1-inch headspace. Now, you don't want to add too little either, so you don't want a half full jar. You want to make sure you fill it up to that 1-inch mark. Now what I'm doing is going in with some vinegar and a very clean towel, and I'm just going to wipe around the rims of each of these canning jars, because anything that may have spilled on the canning jar, the vinegar is going to get it up. If there is some residue left behind, your lid will not seal. And then if you don't have a proper seal, that means that you will need to use that immediately. All right, after cleaning those lids off, I'm just taking, the tops off. I'm just taking the lids out, and I'm making sure that I'm drying those really well also. And then I'm just going to add this on top of the jar, making sure that orange rubber seal is around the rim of my lids. You can see here that I have about 1 inch of headspace, and I'm adding that lid so that the seal is on the rim. Now I'm just placing those rings on. The rings aren't needed after the canning process, but during the canning process, they are what help keep your lid in place. Because if you didn't have those rings and you tried to can, everything would just spill out of your jar and it just won't be good. So we're putting those rings on, and I'm making sure that before I screw the ring on, that those seals are over the rim. So you want to make sure you also have a rack at the bottom of your pot before you add your jars, because you're going to be boiling this, and you do not want those jars directly on the bottom of whatever pot you're using, or else they can crack. Now we're just adding in all of those cans. I was only able to get 3 half-pint jars, which was fine. 2 pounds I knew wasn't going to make a whole lot, but you always prepare extra jars just in case, because you never know. And so now that those are added, you have to have 1 inch to 2 inches of water over the lids. I cover that up, and then for preserves with this size, I'm only going to bring them to a rolling boil for 10 minutes. Now that those 10 minutes are up, we remove the lid, and we also remove those canning jars. And you guys, you're going to start hearing your lids pop. Mine were popping as I was removing them and placing them on this drying mat. So that is a good sign. Now, they are done, you have to make sure that you leave these for 12 to 24 hours to rest in the same spot. Do not touch them. Do not turn them upside down. Do nothing, because they need to seal so that they can preserve for a long time. All right, you guys, this is the finished result. I am so excited about digging in, and I was glad that I had a little extra left, you guys. So I took some of that sourdough bread that I baked up yesterday morning and I cut into it, and I am going to add some of those apple preserves to this bread. Now, you guys, while I cut into this, I want you to leave me a comment below telling me what you believe God is wanting your fall homemaking to look like, and what are you reflecting on, and how are you creating an inviting home. So here are those preserves, you guys, and I'm excited, like I said, to get into it. And I am going to spread as much of this on my bread as I possibly can, because I want to taste every single bit of that apple cinnamon goodness, you guys. So yes, when I took my first bite, all I can say is yum, 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 and yum me some more. It was delicious. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to hit that link below to get the recipe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share so that people know what we're doing over here. And like. You guys, I hope you have a blessed one, and take care. Bye.